This is Dance Studio 411, where we answer your real-life questions about your toughest studio life predicaments. Parent problems, teacher turnover, student challenges, policy dilemmas, and so much more. Let's talk about what's keeping you awake at night and what you can do about it. Here are your hosts, Suzanne Blake Garrity and Jill Tyrone.
Are you feeling overwhelmed or distracted in your dance studio business? Are you unsure where to focus the time that you do have when you sit down to work on your business? My guest today is Tiffany Henderson. Tiffany is a leader in our industry and owns multiple Tiffany's Dance Academy locations in California. She's been a guest speaker on many of our trainings and podcasts and speaks at our Energize conference each year. Her teacher training system and curriculum, Twinkle Star Dance, is currently implemented in hundreds of dance studios worldwide. During our conversation today, she goes into further detail about the other exciting things that she's working on and that she's currently involved in. But we also discuss how to really get back to basics so you can eliminate distractions and focus on the things that really help your dance studio business, especially with retention and profitability. And now, here's my conversation with Tiffany Henderson. Welcome to this episode of the Dance Studio 411 podcast. I'm Jill Tyrone, and today I'm here with Tiffany Henderson, and I'm super excited because we're going to get back to basics today, right, Tiffany?
Yes, I'm very excited to talk about all the things that we know that we need to remember.
Excellent. And I'm really happy to have you here today. I'm going to let you do your introduction because you can do it better than anybody, because you have some great things going on right now. And I'd love for our listeners to hear your background, all the amazing things that you've done over the years. You're so involved in working with Twinkle Star Dance and Tiffany's Dance Academies, and I want to hear all about that. So give our listeners a beautiful introduction today.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Just a little bit about me. I have owned dance studios up to 9 locations at one time. This is my 25th year. So definitely in working in the space as a dance studio owner, like a lot of your listeners. And then I created, I think it's been now 15 years, the Twinkle Star Dance program curriculum. And we have 300 studios worldwide that are part of our Twinkle Star Dance family. And I love serving them. I also produce parades in Disneyland. So that's been really fun. Something called Dance the Dream. And it started out as something fun to do. And now we're producing 5 Disneyland parades. We're doing our inaugural Walt Disney World parade in May. And that brings me a lot of joy to get to know a lot of other studio owners and teachers in that space. So that's been wonderful. And then I have a Twinkle Star Dance program has a franchise model. So I love working with our franchisees. I'm also the director of a nonprofit called Raising the Bar that I do in my studio. And most recently, I am studying, getting my master's degree in psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. So I just started that endeavor, and that's been fun, something to add to my plate. But I am really interested in the science of positive psychology and how it can help not only studio owners, but your dancers, your parents. What's been most surprising about my program so far is seeing the need and seeing the way that I could solve some problems that we have, with just parent communication and things like that. So that's what I've been up to. And I'm excited today to talk to you about getting back to the basics to help all of our fellow studio owners.
That's great. Yes, you and I have known each other for years now, and it's been really great to watch your programs grow and watch you evolve. And like you mentioned, now going back for your master's in psychology is only going to benefit your studio owners that you work with, our listeners, which is amazing. So that's why we wanted to talk today, because we saw you at our Energize event this past August, and you bring such a great perspective and a wealth of expertise and knowledge. So that's why we're tackling this today. So let's share in some of that. So going back to basics, we're talking about things today like revenue streams in your studio and how we can focus on the things that matter most. So as we were chatting before we hit the record button, we were talking about like distractions and things are busy. You're busy, the studio owners are busy, life is happening. So why don't we dive right in? Let's talk about how we can kind of clear the decks a little bit, and then we'll talk about how this will only benefit your business as you grow and move forward and really work on the studio business per se.
Right. And yes, it's the distractions that I think are keeping us from having those clear goals. And distractions can be anything from family to, things happening at home to teachers leave. I mean, there are things that sometimes you can't clear. But again, for our practical sense of what I'm talking about, I'm talking about the things that we think that we can do in our studio. The exciting thing about being a studio owner or a business owner is that you have all these choices. You can do these camps and you can put together this party and you can, do this program and add this in. And that's exciting. But it sometimes pulls us off what I think our main focus or objective should be. I read something in a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth that I do highly recommend for your listeners. She is sort of talking about how to develop an interest. Well, we already know what our interest is. Our interest is dance and our interest is people. So that we've got figured out. Okay. But I thought this resonated with me and I feel like it could resonate with your listeners. I guess Warren Buffett has this kind of exercise that he does for anybody who works for him. And he asks them, what is your ultimate concern? Which basically like, what is your ultimate goal? Now, he's talking like life goals, right? And I think we can adapt this ultimate concern exercise to being a studio owner, a dance studio owner. And what he says is that you make a list of the top 20 goals, right? The top 20 most important goals, objectives, whatever it is that you have at the time. Then you go through that top 20 list and you clear off everything but two. And you circle the two, you have to decide on two. And the rest of them, you put away, throw away, shred, and don't look at again. Which I thought was really interesting because I thought it was going to say, okay, pick your top two. And then if that doesn't work, go down to number 3 or 4 or whatever it is. You go back to your list because they're all important. But what he was saying in order to be successful in life is that we have to know our ultimate concern. And we have to then push everything away, clear all the distractions of the things that we were also interested in, if that makes any sense. So the way I look at this as a benefit for us is to, right now we're starting to climb again, right? It's okay. So we climb all year. Sometimes we get to that great enrollment goal. We have our recital, everything's great. And then we start again. And every time we start again, we have to sometimes remind ourselves of what our ultimate concerns are and clear those distractions and then take those two things and really focus in on them with like almost like horse blinders. Like literally, we're not even looking at anything else.
I absolutely love this idea. And just for our listeners, so we always list the resources that we mention. So you'll be able to click right out and go find the book or this, I want to do more reading now on the ultimate concern exercise. I think this is great. So what you're saying is let's, as studio owners and business owners, take a list and only pick 2. The rest just go away and eliminate those distractions.
Right. And don't even look at them. Like literally, he said, ignore them. It's like, I want to, okay, for example, you're like, okay, I'm picking these top 2, but this one says add a POM program. Okay, I don't want to offend anybody, but add a pom-pom program. Okay, great. But he says, ignore that. Go to the top 2, right? And then maybe your ultimate concern next year could be a pom program. I don't know, but I think that's good advice. I read that and went, okay, that makes me feel better, because sometimes I'm feeling guilty that I'm not actually doing all the things on my list because I can't get to them all.
It's freeing you up. It's freeing you up to really work on those things that are most important for you. All right, that's great. So I know that leads right into a couple of things that we really want to focus on. So why don't you give us an idea when talking about maybe a couple of excellent ultimate concerns or our ultimate goals for the studio owners? We're going to hone in on a couple of those today, like class tuition and even performances and recitals. So what do you think, if we talk about class tuition, this is a big thing that we see as we head into like summer and into the fall season. We're always thinking about raising prices, tuition. What are we going to charge? Are people going to like it? Are they not going to like it? So, Tiffany, what are some of your ideas today and best advice when we eliminate the distractions and we focus on tuition? What can we do to make it really be beneficial to the studio and not such a burden? I feel like it's stressful to these studio owners.
Right, because they're just hoping, we just hope we have enough or enough students. And sometimes, and I'm going to answer your question, but sometimes what we do is the distraction is the worry. The distraction is, I don't have enough. I don't have this. This is not working. And so, I will throw in, that positive outlook, that forward thinking, the future thinking is also very important. But I'll answer your question. So I feel like if I could answer for all the studio owners in the world from doing this for 25 years in so many different locations and different sizes and shapes of dance studios, that the two ultimate concerns that we should have, and this will be based on business. Okay, so we're talking about business today. There's also the social and emotional part of what we do, and that plays into things. For today's purposes, we're talking business. And I believe that you have to go to the hierarchy of your revenue streams. And the first one on that list is going to be your class tuition revenue, right? Your monthly tuition revenue. And the second one is going to be your shows, your recitals. Those two things are what I highly recommend, that we all focus the majority of our time on. And it seems like, well, duh, like, yeah, we know those things are important. But sometimes we get going and things are going okay. And then we get distracted and we go look over here at something else. And then, what happened to this preschool class over here? It's not it's not doing as well. And then therefore now my recitals aren't, I'm not selling as many tickets or whatever that is. So I believe that those are the two elements that we really do need to focus on.
Great. And I'm making some notes as we go through. And when we were talking as well before we turned on the record button, we were talking about too, helping the faculty and what about teachers and their responsibilities in helping with tuition and helping with revenue. I know that that's a question that comes up as well. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Talk to us about how, I know especially Twinkle Star comes into play when it comes to faculty and trainings and things like that.
Yeah. And I'm going to back up a bit to get to that. So basically, I think that the teachers are, they're your gold. They're everything. But teachers without direction, without structure, without curriculum, without motivation, basically without a path forward, kind of flounder, right? Sometimes they do great on their own. Sometimes they don't. And here's the problem with that. You don't know. The studio owner doesn't know whether the teacher is going to flourish or flounder, because you have to watch and wait and see. And it's very difficult for us to then say, I can control this or I can improve this, right? So your class tuition boils down to what's in your class. Your class is, right? So what's happening in your class? How do we make these classes the best they can be? How do we make them so great and wonderful and fulfilling for the students and the parents and the teachers that people tell all their friends and that they want to come back for and they stay in? Because that is obviously equals our, that monthly tuition. So first and foremost, we've got to know that target market, right? So which classes am I talking about? If for this conversation, I'm going to talk about the classes for your biggest market, which is ages 2 or maybe even a little under 2 to about age 6, 7, 8. Okay. And then both of the edges, but the 2-year-olds are pretty strong. The 2 through 5, 6 is great. And then that 7, 8, 9, it can kind of tail off as far as new students. So that's your target. And those are the classes I'm talking about. I'm talking about preschool classes. I'm talking about your elementary school aged recreational classes. These are your biggest market coming in. So as they come in, you need a class, structure, curriculum, whatever you want to call it, that can be replicated, measured. If your class can't be replicated, it can't be on Tuesday at 10 a.m. and on Friday at 4 p.m., then it's very difficult to measure how it's doing. Because if Miss Sophie is doing her class based on her knowledge from wherever, her dance training and her expertise, and Miss Susie is doing her class, then we can't measure them, we can't compare them, and nor can kids go from one class to another, right? Or even continue up on a progress level, right? So as they progress. So I think that's very important. Now, within being structured so that they can be replicated and measured, they also need to be engaging, right? They have to be fun. They have to be age appropriate, and they have to fit the needs of the child in their developmental stage. Now, that sounds like overwhelming, and it kind of is, and because it's like, okay, wait, so the most important thing I do right now is make my 3-year-old class the best. Yes, that's what I'm saying. But I'm also saying that we need to make sure that we can go back to that class right now and say, okay, this is what I know is going on in that class. Let me see if it's working. Let's work on that, if that makes any sense. So then the last piece of this is teacher training. So now we can hold teachers accountable. We can train them. We can motivate them. We can make them successful because they are given a roadmap, a structure, parameters, a template, all the things. I really think that that's really, really important. Sometimes as studio owners, we get afraid or fearful that if we give our teachers structure, that they will revolt. And they might if they've been doing it a while, but that's up to you to sort of say, yeah, this is what's best for my studio. And then also make them understand how this is going to make their job so much easier and more enjoyable for them. So you can hold your teachers accountable, you can measure, and not so much accountability. I want to go on the path of like motivation and let's lift our teachers up, right? Let's say, hey, I want to make you better. I want this class, I want you to be the best dance teacher you can be. And because you have a huge impact on these kids' lives. So let's take this curriculum and let's make sure you're using it in the way that I think is most effective.
I think that's fantastic. So in looking at how we train our teachers, the tools and the information that we give them and provide for them will help them be successful, which of course then leads to the success of the studio. So this is great. Tiffany, before we move on, is there anything else you'd like to add when it comes into teacher training, curriculum, anything to do with like tuition that we can go on and talk about? Because I know we really highlighted a lot already talking about the teacher training. What about tracking skill progressions? Do you have any specifics on that?
Yeah, I think that the skill progressions and sort of giving incentives, soft incentives, not hard ones, like, okay, you get a trophy every time, that type of thing, are really a great way, really a good thing for 2 reasons. The first one is it gives the parents insight into what they're learning, and that we have a rhyme and a reason. And it's not, sometimes they're looking through the window, it looks like they're running around with a scarf. Then they decide, is it worth it to spend this money, or should we go to the park and have, individual play? And when they can see that we're tracking progression with skills. And I don't want to be talk in a way that misrepresents what I want to say, which is that I'm not saying that a preschool class is all progressions. Okay, this is a one part element of a larger balance of a class. okay? But the skills are easy for the parents to see, understand, see the progression, see the development. And also for the kids, so the children to feel confident, like they've accomplished something. So we have this really cool thing within our Twinkle Star program where we have our passport and journal books. Our passport books are for our Twinkle Star classes. And within our passport book, for every month, there are 3 skills listed. It's like a cute little booklet that every student gets. And each month it'll have a tap skill, a jazz skill, and a ballet skill. And these skills are voice activated. So it's actually my voice saying, plie and stretch or whatever the skill would be, step passe, skipping 2-day, things like that. The student can say them along with them. And what I've learned as a teacher for a long time is that if they can say it, they can do it. So, and it helps that teacher also that they don't have to use their voice all the time. So the students are learning their skills. At the end of the month, we bring the parents in for like maybe 5 to 7 minutes, show the skills that they've learned. They get little stickers and it tracks the progress. What's really cool about this too is that in that passport book, each month they can see where they're going. They can see, oh, next month is going to be, give a little love as the theme for our November lesson plans, which is fun. And then also these are the skills we're going to be learning. So I really feel like that encourages them to stay in rather than say, all right, we did the holiday show. We'll see you next year. That's what we're doing within our program in our studios. And it seems to be working really well with our retention.
And retention is the next little note that I have on my sheet here, which is great. And I have to comment about the saying it, being able to say it. If you can say it, you can do it, because I just used that with my senior class last night, actually. So not only does it work, that's something that you can learn and carry on all the way through up to, those older dancers in your studio. It's very true. If you can say it, you can do it. So we worked on that last night in ballet. So retention. So showing the progressions, working with a curriculum, all of this really is a great basis for your studio and for retention. And I know now too, we're going to talk about recitals specifically and performances and how this ties into retention. I just did a podcast and a training for our dance studio owner members, and it was really all about performances as well. So this is perfect timing. We're hammering this home. Let's talk and move into the recital phase, because that also really ties into retention. So why are recitals so important to a dance studio, Tiffany?
Yeah, I think this was very clear to me during what I call COVID times. We don't like, okay. I'll label it that. Because I remember it being June, but not knowing what month it was. And the reason is that we weren't having a recital. And I also heard the feedback from the parents is that's what they miss the most, even though sometimes we feel like it's kind of going against the grain it's a very small percentage of parents that complain about recitals. It is. And I understand the stress of putting the show on. It's like, having this big event every year and after it feels great. But first and foremost, I think it's a family tradition. It's the thing that they look forward to. It's a part of the community's fabric, and it brings together all the family members, grandmas, grandpas, aunts, and uncles, and friends. So that, I think, is a very, very important part. That's sort of the overview. The second one is that, it's keeping those dancers and parents and teachers, it gives them a purpose and a goal. It gives them that, that thing that they're looking forward to. I'm working really hard today, and maybe today's even a little boring. I've been doing this dance for so long, but we are going to get to the end of the finish line. We're going to get on stage. The lights are going to turn on. There's going to be this amazing energy in the room. That energy of people together live is a wonderful thing. And then afterwards, that feeling afterwards, like the afterglow of like, I got nervous, right? I overcame that. Then I did my performance and I'm feeling so great. And then the parent is hugging them. Those aren't, think about it. When do they get to do that? Very often, right? So that part I think is wonderful. And on that same vein, it's a shared positive experience. We don't share a lot of experiences anymore. A lot of, this is I don't want to get onto like what's wrong with world, but in the end, we need to do more together. And this is a thing that our dance studios do for the greater good, is that we have a shared positive experience. There's one more thing that I'd like to add, and of course I'll go into like profitability and all that, but I think these are like things you have to really remember, is that your recital, you control your environment at your recitals. When in opposition of like if you're going to go to an outside event and you take your children to perform, whether it's a community event or a competitive event, you're not in charge, which is like nice sometimes, but you're not in charge. And so the tone and the environment, and whether it's negative, positive, chaotic, peaceful, all of those things are not up to you. But you have to deal with them, right? So you get to set the tone. You get to decide exactly how you want your audience to feel, your teachers to feel, your dancers to feel, and yourself to feel. So I think that's it's just an awesome opportunity to continue to create relationships so that these students do stay in over time. Lastly, profitability. We're talking about revenue streams, right? That we average 5 audience members per dancer. Now, when they're 3, they bring 30. When they're 13, they bring 3. Okay, I get that. But all in all, if you allow all of your students to buy, or parents to buy as many tickets as they want, you'll go back and be able to see an average. And I'm giving you my average, and I think it's a pretty good number, statistically speaking, because we're right now doing 25 shows a year, and we're not limiting anything. Okay, so we average 4.825 audience members per dancer, and that's everything included, right? So that's little guys, big guys, whichever. So just, if you have 200 dancers and you times that by 5, that's 1,000 tickets that you will sell. If like my son is in Hubbard Street Dance Chicago, and they're at a beautiful, wonderful company, but even professional companies have to market their shows. There's not a guarantee that there's going to be 1,000 people. And they're professionals, but for us, everyone's going to come and watch someone they know on stage. And that's the pull, right? So if you do the math on that, 1,000 tickets times whatever you're charging for tickets, that's a pretty good number. Now, we know we're going to take out an expense from that, and then what's left over is what our profit is. But for the most part, our theaters and costs to do our shows are not going to be near the amount of ticket money you're bringing in, not even half. So that part's really important. The second one would be, commissions on costumes and bundling, your participation fee. One little tip I have is burying or just not calling to attention the costume cost in your participation fee. I feel like that works better, because then they don't really have an opinion on whether they think that's a good deal or not. And so we all understand that we're not billionaires, right? We're doing God's work doing dance studios, but we also need to make a living so that we can continue to do it. So you're going to have also commission on that. So you figure if you've got 200 students, maybe some are in more than one dance, 250 costumes times whatever you think that commission would be. And then you add those things together. And I mean, you're looking at, 20, 25, a good amount of profit in one show. And then, wait for it, and then I'll let you talk, Jill. I'm so sorry. I get so excited, is that you figure so you get one like potential profitability number, and then you times that by 2 by doing 2 shows a year. So if right now you're only doing a spring show, and you say, oh, I could have a holiday show, and that would be so much fun, then that will really help you understand your potential profitability.
Yeah, and we've been talking holiday shows here at work because of all the amazing holiday costumes that we have, and we're so excited because you can start small, but even a small show can be extremely profitable. And I was writing some notes as you were talking, and one of the reasons we love to have you on the podcast and do trainings with our members is because you really understand and talk to us in very understandable terms about how to have profitable shows. That's your sweet spot. That's why we're here today. We want to encourage all of our listeners to really feel good about working through the data and the statistics, which is why I wrote that down, because I mean, you have the data to back up the fact that the families are going to buy the tickets for the shows. So we've got the data to back it up. We can make these shows profitable. And once you do one profitable show, let's do two. Let's throw that holiday show in, which is always so much fun. And you talk about retention. People and families love traditions. They love looking forward to those shows. They love looking forward to the hugging their dancers afterwards. And it's so much fun. Okay, so we've unpacked a lot so far. We've talked about working within your studio to really bring in ideas for retention. We've talked about retention when it comes to recitals and getting really all of the profitability in both areas. So if we were to focus and eliminate distractions and talk about tuition, recitals, and getting back to these basics, is there anything else you want to add today, Tiffany, to kind of wrap this up? Because there's a lot of great nuggets that we've talked about today.
Yeah, thank you. And I love the opportunity to share what I know, because the other thing I will say is, as dance studio owners, sometimes we do feel like an island. There's a lot of great groups like Dance Studio Owner, all the great groups. And sometimes it's hard to have those conversations. So for me, I love sharing. So I'm hoping that your listeners can take something away from this conversation. And of course, I have so much for further sessions just on profitability on recitals and things like that. But I think what I want to say, other than the clearing of the distractions, reminder to look at your classes right now. Take a hard look at, what's being taught. Is there something you could do right now that would structure that in a better way, make it more measurable, make it in a way where it's more replicable? And so that part is important. And then looking at your shows. And like you said, for holiday, if you're not doing a holiday show this year, you're right, it may be a little too late. But you can consider doing something in your studio. You can consider at least giving them a test, like a tester. It's sort of like a teaser. I mean, so like this year we're doing a little holiday dances. You give them like everybody wear little antler ears or something. And then next year, guess what? Here's our save the date. And get that going for yourself. So definitely focusing in on that. The other thing is, let's think about our audience. Let's think about what they want for our shows, because you always have to consider who's watching. And I always say the parents are the big fans. And then you've got supporters of the big fans, which are extended family. And then you've got the friends that come for the parents, right? And so, when the child comes on stage for 3 minutes and then that's over, it may be that family is like, okay, that's what we came to see, but we still have to see we want to enjoy the rest of the show. So let's create shows with themes and fun things that really, really engage our audience. And I think that's one thing I didn't get to mention with recitals, because I do think that people will get excited about coming back when they know they had a great time when they were there. But the last thing I'll say today is just a reminder to studio owners, dance teachers alike, that about the impact that we have on the dancers and our communities at large. So if we, I know we're talking about business and profitability, but I think this goes hand in hand. Sometimes when we're concentrating on the worry, or we don't have enough numbers, or somebody went to another studio, or the teacher left, it doesn't, that's where all our energy is going. If we can say, all right, yeah, we're going to put our energy into future thinking, positive things that we think we want for our students to know and learn, and then also take a minute to remind yourself of that amazing impact that you have. and furthermore to the community. So, it's just a little reminder, a little like, pat yourself on the back and know that what you do means something. And you have purpose. It's there. And if today you're not feeling that way, it's there. You just have to clear everything away and you'll find it again. And I think that will lead to more success as you go through your year.
That's a wonderful way to wrap this up. That was so beneficial, so helpful, and I love the encouragement that you provide to our listeners every time we talk, Tiffany. So thank you. Be sure to share this episode. If, like you said, sometimes we feel like we're on an island. Maybe you have a friend or a fellow studio owner that may benefit from this. Share this episode with them. Tiffany, I want to also put in the show notes where we can reach you. What's the best way that our listeners can learn more about you, Twinkle Star Dance, all of the good things that you're doing?
Sure. You can go to our website at twinklestardance.com. You can also reach me via email at tiffany@twinklestardance.com. I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to connect.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Tiffany, for being here today. We really appreciate all of your expertise as always.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Dance Studio 411. Visit us online at dancestudio411.com for more great resources and to submit a question for a future episode. Our number one goal is to help you build a successful dance studio business and keep your passion for dance alive.